All right. Hello, my name's Ned, and this is episode 4 of a series I call Put Me in Coaching. And in this series, I'm going to use a clip from this TSM Legends video to outline out-of-game communication and some of the flaws that the TSM coaching staff shows in or dealing with their players, and some of the things they do well. But this particular clip, I always found it interesting ever since the very first time I watched it because I think it shows some particularly poor coaching practices, and it's one of the most outrageous clips I've seen in a while. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are sick of me using TSM as an example, but to be fair, they put out a lot of content, and they're sort of out there they're easily accessible for me to criticize. So, with that being said, let's get into the clip, and I'll be pausing it periodically to share my thoughts. And this is going to be a sort of extra long video because not only is the clip long, but I have a lot of expository things to say about it. So let's begin.
So recently,
All right, so let me preface it. I guess I haven't done that yet. Uh, it's Loco's also going to do this. It's a clip from season 5. It's pretty dated. I mean, not too dated. It's only like what 6 months ago. But they were at Worlds, or they were prepping for Worlds, and it was the Dyrus's last tournament before he retires. And so, um, he was apparently having attitude problems. That's what Loco and Reggie says. And so they're trying to sort of have a team meeting to improve his attitude and make the practice environment more healthy. All right.
in scrims, Darius hasn't been putting his best foot forward. He's actually been putting almost minimal effort required to scrim. He hasn't been communicating. He's been ragey in Champ Select, and he's just been an unproductive member of the team. And the coaching staff, me separately, Andy separately, Parth and me separately, try to talk to Darius, and it.
All right. So already, um, this is already a really shit scenario for any team. When one of your players is not practicing to the fullest extent and having a bad attitude before the most important tournament of the year, it's terrible because this is the tournament that all the players should be at their best for, and they should be wanting to try the best to win, and they should be like not. If there's ever a time to have attitude problems, it's not here, and they should have been fixed a long time before that. But as we'll see in the video, the attitude problems seem to sort of really develop themselves at the boot camp, which obviously can happen, and I'll get into a little bit more of that. Also, another thing that I sort of cut Loco off before he finished saying is he talked about how he and Reginald and Parth had all pulled Tyrus aside separately and said and talked about how his attitude is negatively affecting the team and how he needs to fix it. And apparently, none of that worked. Which there's either an external problem that the coaches aren't equipped to deal with, or the coaches just aren't doing their job correctly. And I think it's a little bit of a mixture of both. Because really, I think after you've had 3 coaching staff people pull the player aside and say, "Hey, your attitude sucks. We need it to improve," in whatever, however they want to say it, as long as they don't royally fuck up, it really should be a wake up call for the player already. So what that tells me is either Dyrus needs to be benched, which they obviously can't do because it's right before Worlds, or that uh, something is a long occurring problem that they should have fixed earlier, or that they're not equipped to fix the problem right now, and they're just going to do the best that they can. So there's a lot of things, and this overall is just a really bad scenario.
Didn't really have an effect. And last time we had a team meeting where Andy and I spoke up about Darius's behavior and how it affected the team, and he didn't have much to say about it until the camera was turned off. And this time, everyone in the team is going to speak up and say their piece about why they think Darius isn't putting in the effort. So, I
All
mean,
right, all right. So this is another one of my big qualms with how Loco and Reginald decided to handle this, because right here, what they do is they bring in everybody to talk about how shitty Dyrus's attitude is. So already it feels like an intervention. If you've ever watched the show Intervention, the parallels that this draws are like, it's uncanny how similar they are, because everybody's basically, they're going to basically have everybody tell Dyrus what they think he's doing wrong and what they think he can improve on, and they're going to be saying that too. All right, so video.
straight up, Darius, a lot of people on.
Oh, okay, and sort of what I would do better is, rather than having everybody as a group sort of gang up on Darius, because that already makes the player, whoever it is, feel attacked. It already makes them feel sort of disrespected, like they're the problem in the team, because it's the coaches having everybody in the team say, "Hey, you're the problem," or at least it comes across that way. So what you could do differently is, one, you could try what they already tried, which I'm glad they tried this first, which was taking him aside one on one, or maybe you could have a player in the team without knowing that you talked to this player say, "Hey, go talk to Dyrus. I think he needs to hear this from you," and say, I needed you to make sure you don't tell him that I told you to say these things, or like I told you to talk to him." And so you can kind of do it that way where he doesn't feel persecuted by his own team.
The team don't think you're putting your best foot forward, and they think you should be putting in more of an effort during practice in terms of communication in game and also communication out of game when we talk about what kind of picks we're going to do. And also, a lot of people had problems with when you guys went out to eat. It was when I was staying behind for the sponsor stuff. I heard everyone went to Flying Pan, and then people were discussing where they're going to eat, and they said you just ran off. And it's not just that event. There's been a lot of events where we decided to do things as a team, and you just run off, or you're not going to cooperate, or you act passive aggressive about it.
The thing is, I say
All right, so right there's a couple things Loco did well, or at least tried to do well, and there's a couple things that are not necessarily him doing anything poorly. It's just sort of a problem within the communication of the team. So the thing that Loco tries to do well is he tries to look at Dyrus when he's talking to him. And as we get in the episode, I'm gonna say something that's gonna make a lot of people a little upset, and that's gonna be that League of Legends and esports as a whole right now is not quite yet a man's world. And I don't mean that in a gender like man or woman. I mean that in a man to boy. And when I say man, I mean like a matured, adult, respectable, and responsible human being, right? And I don't think a lot of these players, because they come right out of their like what they're 16 years old, they get taken from freaking solo queue and they get put in a team, and they don't really have time to develop the skills that a lot of adults expect and that are required in a normal workplace and among other adult men or adults, professional adults in general. There's plenty of women who manifest these traits and very professional, very respectable, responsible, whatever. And so, no social justice warriors, don't come after me for this. so, um, so what Loco does here is he's looking at Dyrus, and you're gonna see as the clip goes on that a lot of the other people don't do that. It's really only the coaches who manage to look at the other players. The other players aren't taught that skills yet, which I think is a lapse in teaching and a missed opportunity of teaching the team how to communicate out of the game from the coaches. Another thing that Loco is talking about is something that he wasn't even there present for. He says it himself, and that's that everybody went to go get food somewhere. They said like the Flying Pan or something, and Dyrus went off to eat on his own. Which already I don't think that's a problem, right? Dyrus is an adult. He can go do whatever he wants. He can eat whatever he wants. Now I can understand if it's understood by the team that everybody eats together and it's team bonding time. Maybe okay, maybe that's a little disrespectful if it's like a rule you have. But I don't. This is sort of a topic for a different video, but I don't think this is necessarily a rule a team should have. I think the players are tired of playing with each other all goddamn day. They talk about the game all day. They have to play solo queue. They have to sleep in the same house. They have to use the same bathrooms. They have to eat the same food with each other when they're playing in the house. So if Dyrus wants to go have some alone time, eat somewhere else away from the team, he should be able to do that. All right, let's continue.
things in advance, and then we're on our way to do it, and then we ignore what I want anyways, and then we just do it. It happened like 3 times already, and when we're going to plan stuff, it always gets fucked up on the way. Like, if it's all fine if we all want to go and eat at one place, but if one person doesn't want to go eat there, we're just gonna like make that one person suffer. Like, when you wanted to go eat Korean barbecue, I really, really didn't want to go and eat there. It made me feel really sick, and we just went there anyways, and then I just sucked it up and just went anyways, even though I really didn't want to.
I mean, personally,
Okay, so let's talk about what Dyrus just said right there and what it means to his team, because Dyrus is communicating something really important that maybe he doesn't even know, and I can guarantee the coaches didn't recognize he was communicating there. He was saying, I said that I didn't want to do this thing, and nobody listened to me. Nobody heard me. Nobody respected my opinion, and that's making me feel unlistened to. And if I'm not listened to by my team, why should I listen to my team? And why should I listen to my coaches? If they're not going to listen to me, they're not respecting my wishes. And so, of course, it's a team. So of course, there's going to be majority vote, and of course, there's going to be times where every like if it's expected that the team eats together, you're gonna have to say, hey, Dyrus, suck it up, go get Korean barbecue. We all decided to go there, but next time maybe you'll get to pick the place. So you give them something that makes them feel that like they get to participate in the decision making that they rightfully should be able to. It's their choice where they get to eat, right? So already that's a problem, and Dyrus is already communicating one of the things that's causing his attitude to be bad. But what Reginald is going to do right here is he's going to say, hey, let's not talk about the food.
For me, I don't think I think the food thing is really off topic. I think we should really just talk about practice and just team atmosphere, because I know like this is your last Worlds and you're coming into it, and you've already.
All right, so when I was first watching this clip, the day it came out or the day after it came out, whenever I watched it, I was subscribed to the channel. I saw this from Reginald, and I was like, oh fuck, thank God. Of course, who cares about the food? It's not a big deal. But as I'm thinking about it now, like I said before, it's actually more than just about where they went to eat and that Dyrus didn't want to eat with the team. It's about him not feel like I said earlier, his wishes and his opinions not being feeling like he's being respected. So when Reginald says let's be on topic, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing always, and I think there's a time and a place for that. And I think it's almost smart by him to realize that it's a possible topic that's wasting the team's time. But I feel like he's missing, like I said earlier, that Dyrus is not feeling respected. And so this is a key opportunity where he could say, "I hear you, Dyrus. I hear that you don't feel respected, and maybe next time us as a team, we're gonna work on communicating with you or listening to your what you want and what you feel like the team should be eating or just things in general, right? And then sort of go back into trying to fix his attitude because that already is going to make him feel better, like he has a say in the team, and that like the team's admitting to that they didn't listen to him.
Said like multiple times that you want to retire in social media, but like to be perfectly honest with you, everything outside of like disregard everything outside of practice. Okay, if we go into practice and just like overall attitude and atmosphere, I really feel like you basically already given up. Like going to MSG, you tried a lot harder to communicate, and you're a lot more active, and then just your in-game communication, it's really up and down, and you're getting mad a lot more than everyone else. I know there's a lot of things that bug you, and there's a lot of things that bug all your teammates, but
He's not looking at Dyrus right now. He's looking at the ground. So I was complimenting him earlier about looking at your players, but looking somebody in the eye when you're talking to them, it's an important skill for anybody to know. Any adult knows to look at somebody when you're talking to them. You feel like it makes you feel respected, and it makes them feel engaged, and it makes them feel like you're talking to them and not the ground, and it earns you credit as a responsible and a leader. Like so, when Reginald refuses to look at somebody when he's talking to them, it looks bad for him.
you're really letting all those things affect you in your play and your communication. And you know, for the last year, we've been putting a lot of effort to try to play towards top, and you're not putting in the consistent effort to communicate. You're letting like a lot of things tilt you, and you get mad for it. Like today when we talked about, you're really unproductive about it, and you're really passive aggressive about it. We're just trying to work together to find out an answer, and you're just like, no, absolutely, I will not do that.
And again, let me reiterate, he's telling him, you're the problem. Your other teammates aren't doing this, it's you who's doing this. You're the one being angry, and you're the one who's refusing to communicate with the team, right? So it could feel like Dyrus is being persecuted.
Absolutely, I would not do that. But like when Bjergsen brings up a pick, and I tell him he can't play this, he's just always trying to explain to me why that pick is good or why the pick's better. But today when we're talking about picks with you, you just got really angry, and then for me, I didn't really want to escalate the situation because we were practicing, so I just let it be. But I thought, like, your behavior to all the players and even to the staff is like super disrespectful and even mean.
Okay, so I'm sure TSM has this time carved out after scrims where they get to talk about how the scrims went and the things that the players need to work on. So I don't understand why this is being brought up just now. I didn't want to talk about you during practice. Okay, fine, but it should be something you should be bringing up with him directly after the scrim, so it's still fresh in his mind. You can say, "Hey, you maybe shouldn't have done this," but maybe Dyrus wasn't in a mood to hear it then. So I don't know what's going on in Reginald's head, but if I was the coach of the team, I would be thinking to deal with that problem as quickly as possible.
And you're definitely not being helpful. Like even when like the camera's on, right, or anything, like the players are super scared to say say anything about you because they don't want to get bashed on by Reddit. But like, and even the players don't want to talk to you about it directly. But like every single player on our team has said that you get really angry and mad, and that you're not really trying your best.
All right. So if this is true, it again reiterates what I said earlier about esports and League of Legends not being yet a man's world because it's understood by the majority of adults, and I think by especially the male gender, that when you have a problem with somebody, and I don't want to actually, I'm overgeneralizing in North American culture, and particularly the USA, it's understood by men that when you have a problem with somebody, you don't go talk to your boss about them. You go talk to them directly, and then if that doesn't work, if they're still their behavior doesn't change, then you can try and get them in trouble with other people and take other measures. But the players should be able to go and talk to Dyrus about what they feel he's doing wrong, and that's just a part of a healthy team environment. You don't want to have to go get Daddy to come punish Dyrus. You want to tell Dyrus that this is the problem and fix it before it escalates to that period, right? You don't want to try and get him in trouble because that, first of all, that's going to break his trust in you, and second of all, it's just the right thing to do. It's showing that you don't have the guts to go talk to somebody about a problem you have with them on your own. So I think the coaches already, they should have communicated to the players that if you have a problem with your teammate, you just need to tell them. You don't need to flame them or be frustrated with them or not or act frustrated with them. But you need to go and talk to them in a calm way and say, "Hey, I think you're doing this wrong," or "Hey, I wish you would do this instead," or "Hey, it makes me feel like this when you do this." Like there's a whole bunch of ways that if you talk to like anybody who went to school for psychology or anything like that, they'll be able to tell you ways to communicate your ideas and when you should be and who should be communicating the ideas to who.
Because if you're actually trying your best, then you wouldn't let all the small things bother you. Like Worlds means a lot to everyone on the team, and you've been to Worlds like 4 times, and this is your last Worlds. But I know for a fact, no matter what you say, I know for a fact that you're not putting in your best effort. Because you're getting, instead of like putting your energy in being mad, you're like instead of putting your energy in being mad and angry about the situation, you can try to help find an answer with the team.
All right, so I think what Reginald said there is good. I think that's true. Instead of getting tilted, try to work with your team to create an answer. Like that's common sense, right? But it's easier said than done. So it's sort of something that coaches have to catch in the moment. Hey, you're getting angry here. Rather than doing that, maybe you could do this. Maybe you could tell Svenskeren, hey, I wish you would give me more ganks. Whatever it is, like it doesn't matter.
In some ways where it affects me is like if, for example, if I feel like there's something we need to do, like when we TP, when I feel like we should be split pushing, I always say in a very like suggestive and passive way. I always say like,
Everybody notice where's Bjergsen looking right now? Is it at Dyrus? No. Dyrus is over here, buddy. He's over there. So don't he's looking at the boxes in the middle of the floor. This is something that the coaches need to communicate. Hey, when you're talking to your fellow players, look over at them because it makes them feel engaged and it makes them feel like you're talking to them.
I think perhaps we should just be split pushing more instead of saying like we should just keep pushing top because I don't want to be like straightforward because I feel like a lot of times I get like a comment back. So every time I say something, it's always like extremely passive and suggestive. I never make like super decisive calls to you. And with TPs, I'm always like, maybe we can TP here or be ready to TP. I never really tell you.
All right, this is a different topic in general, and I don't really think I'm qualified to really talk about this too much, but it's always been a debate whether or not your teammates should call the TP for the top laner or whether the top laner should call the TP for the teammates. And some analysts and professionals will tell you, I think the top laner should be able to call his own TP. It is his summoner spell after all. But there's been a lot of teams who are successful where the support calls the TP. Like I believe whatever I was watching a summoning insight where Monty said that Mata would call the TP for his top laner and stuff like that. Um, so some would argue it's already a problem that Dyrus isn't the one calling the TPs initially and knowing when to use his teleport. But it's not really on topic, so I'll resume.
Just instantly TP because I feel like it just ends up in a lot of bad situations when I've made the TP call.
Basically, what he said to me is that whenever he makes a call to you, it's a lot more passive now because he's scared that you might get angry at him, and then you're just passive aggressive back. You're like, if this TP doesn't work, I'm gonna fall behind and we're gonna lose. Like that's a
Okay, so what's wrong with Dyrus saying that? If this TP doesn't work, I'm going to fall behind and we're going to lose. That's another argument really for the top laner having to call the TP because he's the one who knows what position his lane is in, and he's the one who knows when he's able to favorably TP. And sometimes Bjergsen has to take that information and say, "Oh, okay, if this TP doesn't work, I'm going to fall behind. We're going to lose." And he has to say, "Okay, well, that's a calculated risk I'm going to make as the shot caller to call Dyrus down here in TP." And so really, I don't think there's anything wrong with Dyrus saying that, and I'm not sure why that's a problem, right? Reginald's saying it's passive aggressive, but really it's information. Maybe Dyrus could say it in a different way, or maybe it should already be understood by his team that that's what's going to happen. But I don't know. It just seems a little weird to me that he'd be mentioning this.
communication you've been having with Bjergsen, and it's hard for him to do his job.
There's a lot of factors into it, but for the most part, I agree with most of the stuff that you're saying. And like, one of the reasons for it is because all the little stuff does put me on tilt and does make me very angry because it's not that I don't care, it's that there's times where I care too much where it hurts the team in a negative way, and then when I finally get things on track, it sets me off track again. For the
All right, so what Dyrus just described there, which was that he cares too much, but it hurts the team in a negative way. He described a positive energy that he's channeling the wrong way, which he needs it to see a sports psychologist or he needs somebody to help him be able to use that drive to win and that want to better his team in a way that doesn't make him seem pouty or negative attitude or tilted for the rest of the team and negatively impact their practice environment. So that's something that TSM should already see, or somebody on the coaching staff of TSM should already see and say, hey, we need to bring a sports psychologist specifically. Like, even if you say it's for the whole team, you bring him in really specifically to help Dyrus with this issue of how to think and how to channel his caring about the game too much into positive energy, into practicing and into bettering himself and his team.
TPs, like, if there was a scrim where I would like do a lot of good TPs and then maybe like I have like one bad TP and I start losing confidence in what I'm doing, I slowly fall back into this circle of where I just like do whatever like the team wants, because when things don't go right, I just try to revert to what works best.
You have the attitude of, okay, I messed up, I'm gonna learn from the situation and not tilt. I think that we can definitely be a top 4 team at Worlds this year, even though we're running into so many troubles. A lot of our problems that we're having right now is because of atmosphere. I feel like if you want to win no matter what, and even if you're doing bad and you constantly communicate through the game, I feel like that would increase our chances by double at this.
Okay, so I want to compliment Reginald here on something he actually does well, which is he puts responsibility on Dyrus's shoulder, and also he compliments him. He says this basically: you matter so much to the team that if you were to improve by just this much, our chances of winning would double, which is astronomical, right? It's absolutely inaccurate. But he's saying something that's going to make Dyrus want to get better and make him feel good about himself and make him feel like if he does get better, his team is going to appreciate it and his team's going to be able to win easier. It's really smart actually by Reginald to say this.
If you just take a day off, reset your mind, and literally come back Monday and you try your best to communicate and you don't get frustrated, you don't get angry, and no matter what happens, you just constantly communicate. I definitely think you can just single-handedly double our chances of winning Worlds. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're a team, and the whole point of being a team is basically to pick up slack when one teammate's doing bad. And then, like, if you're doing poorly, like I've said, try to do whatever you can to let the other teams carry by communicating, by trying to be positive. You know, like when you played with Nat, even though he wasn't the best player, he was always hella positive, and you said that helped you. Like with you, if you were doing bad and you were just positive, it would make us do so much better than if you were doing bad and you're being negative. And then that means that it hurts the team even more.
Okay, so as I was complimenting Reginald for what he said there, but how I mentioned in I think it was episode 2, Reginald doesn't always say these things at the right time. He said the right thing right there, but he didn't say it at the right time. This is something you want to close the team discussion with. This is something you want to leave Dyrus feeling good with, leaving him thinking like, oh yeah, maybe I can better myself, and then maybe our team really will be top 4 at Worlds. But as we'll see for the rest of the clip, the discussion keeps going. So that's already a problem because they haven't anywhere near solved the problem of Dyrus's attitude problem yet. They like so far no there's been no conflict resolution.
The thing is, like, I know it's stupid, but I've just been doing this for so long that all these little things that bother me become, it just really easy to throw me off. And so even if we say stuff like, you know, Darius, don't tilt, just try to keep positive, and then I put that I put that mindset, it's gonna go back and forth still. Like we've talked about this so many times, and all the stuff that you tell me makes sense, but at the end of the day, if it's fixed for 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, it's just gonna come back to this point, and you guys shouldn't even be.
Right. So what he just said right there is even if you tell me not to tilt, great. I'll get that attitude and I'll fix it for a day and a match, a week, however long the period of time is. But eventually, I'm always going to go back to being the negative Nelly, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm always going to go back to tilting, and I'm going to need to reset that mindset. So, first of all, yeah, I think that's sort of natural for anybody. Nobody's going to have a permanently positive mindset, right? It's sort of something you have to keep reminding yourself. It's really a matter of mindfulness, and nobody has the mental fortitude to be the perfect positive attitude teammate all the time. So, of course, Dyrus. But secondly, if it's actually true that his mental fortitude doesn't last for this positivity for more than a match or more than a day, then I do think there's a problem. And again, I'd bring in a sports psychologist to help him out because I don't really feel like I'm equipped, which is another thing we could talk about, which is sometimes your coaching staff isn't equipped to help the player deal with the problem they have. So that's why you bring in somebody like a Weldon, which is why I think it's so smart they brought him in this split. But that's why you bring in somebody like a Weldon, and he helps the player overcome this mental attitude of tilting after or during games at little things. Secondly, if it's still a reoccurring problem with a player, then that unfortunately, if the player's attitude is really that bad, you kind of have to either deal with it, or if they're a really valuable asset for the team, or in Dyrus's case, where he's kind of falling off at this point, you have to get rid of him. And I understand they can't do that right now. It's at Worlds. They've practiced with this player the whole time, so that's obviously not an option. They have to sort of band-aid fix it. But I'm talking about just in general when you have this problem with a player.
Thinking about the fact that I'm retiring or not, whether it's on social media, it doesn't matter what other people say, because if I keep playing like this and my mentality like goes really bad, then even if I didn't want to retire, I would still get benched this way. And so that's why in this last year that it's really important that we make sure these, like, to the best of our ability, like, sure, there's going to be small things that happen that like irritate everyone, but to the best of our ability for what we have, we should be able to do it.
Like I think Santorin, like
Okay, so what the fuck did Dyrus just say right there? He communicated nothing. He talked a little bit about his problem, and then he said, "All right, guys, I'm gonna rally you together now. Even if some of the things get us down, to the best of our ability, we can't tell." He's basically just giving advice to everybody. He's reiterating to everybody else what they've said to him, which in a way is good. It means he's listening to what his team has to say, and he's trying to be engaged in the communication, but I don't think he even has a clue what he's trying to say right there. Or if he does, he doesn't know how to communicate it in a good way. Which, to be fair, a player doesn't have to have that skill set. That's for their coaches to help interpret, and that's for somebody like me to come in and to say, hey, what I think what Dyrus is trying to say here is, and then after I finish saying that, Dyrus, is that right? Is that what you tried to say, right? But right there, nobody does that, first of all, and second of all, like that was just so hilarious at how little information there was in that whole paragraph that Dyrus just spoke right there.
You're really close to Santorin. You go to the gym with him all the time. You guys hang out really closely. I think Santorin, you need to basically be honest and talk about the team environment and how it's stopping your progress as a jungler to improve. And
All right, so this is the worst decision made in the entire video. Hey, Santorin, you're Dyrus's closest teammate. Now shit on him. Tell him he's bad. Tell him he's wrong. Now, of course, it's obviously not that extreme, but it's basically like I'll draw the parallel again between this and intervention. You're gonna have them go around the circle, and they're gonna have their script. Dyrus, your addiction has impacted me negatively in the following ways, and instead of addiction, you just substitute your negative in-game and out-of-game attitude has affected me negatively in the following ways, right? So I think this is the worst decision that they made during the whole team meeting because, first of all, Santorin doesn't know how to talk to Dyrus. You'll see he's looking around the room, looking down the whole time. He's like fidgeting with his hands. He doesn't want to say these things to Dyrus. He doesn't want to be the one to tell Dyrus these things. And I'm not saying that players should because previously I said the opposite sort of. And you might be saying, but Ned, before you said players have to be able to communicate to each other and in a way where it's like man to man. And yes, I did say that, but not when their coaches are telling them publicly to do it. So because it's just going to make him feel attacked. And look, you can see in Santorin's body language and the way he's looking, he doesn't want to do this right now. And so I think from day one, it's more important for the coaches to communicate to the players that if you do have a problem with each other, you pull them aside one-on-one and you work on that problem so it can get resolved. You don't do what they're doing right now, which is where it's last minute and they have all these problems, and so they bring them in a circle and they say, tell each other your problems. And because, first of all, maybe Santorin can't think of anything off the top of his head. I think he manages to, but really, even what he says here is sort of like shy and timid, and he's not sure of what to say, and so, or continue.
I mean, for me, it's not really like, I don't think play matters at all because I feel like you do trade the correct ways and stuff. Like, the only thing that I feel like I need is like more information. When I'm looking at top lane, sometimes like I don't know what I should be doing because I don't know all matchups exactly how they play out, and I don't know every single time if it's gankable. And sometimes I want to gank top, but then another lane is also calling for me, and then like I personally, as like just how I play is like if someone calls me, I'll come there. So like even if top lane is most likely gankable, then it goes to bot lane, and sometimes the bot lane gank won't even work because it's like a low percentage chance, but they just call for it because nobody else is communicating. And like in terms of TPing, it's like I don't know how we should do it, but I feel like if we call it out consistently, then it'll also be easier for like everyone to play around the TP, and also like sometimes we have miscommunication where I'm going bot lane and then they 5v3 dive us because I didn't know they had TP up and we didn't.
I did say in chat the other day I was gonna do that more, but today I didn't even do what I told you that I was gonna do.
And that's, again, the coach's fault. The coach is sitting there with his headset, hopefully, or standing there with his headset. When they're in scrims, he's listening to the communications, he's watching what's happening, and he needs to make a mental note or a physical note that, hey, Dyrus isn't calling these TP times. So if he doesn't, again, call the TP times like he said he was going to, I'm going to remind him during scrims, and I'm going to drill it into his head over and over and over again so that when he actually gets to play on stage, he's thinking, oh, hey, Coach Reginald, Coach Loco Doco, they said I need to be calling this TP right now, and it's just something else he can think about and he can do correctly when he's in game. It's like coaching 101.
So, moving on, I'll definitely like try to make sure that in my mind that I'd make sure to call for everything. I feel guilty when I fuck up in lane and then I TP back to lane and it makes me not want to call things because the enemy got like some kind of advantage over me and I shouldn't be thinking that way. I should just like like focus on making sure everyone knows what's happening so we know what to do as a team.
We're definitely here to work with you guys. We're definitely here to make sure that things are better. We're not there to just be like it's our way or the highway. We're actually here to make sure that everyone gets what they need and like has whatever they want to basically, like improve. It's in our best interest to win, and we want to make sure that there's an environment for you guys to do that.
The overall attitude is
And I believe Reginald when he says that. I honestly believe that. And from the approach he took, he didn't try to say, "Hey Dyrus." He did say, "Hey Dyrus, you're the problem," but he didn't say, "Hey Dyrus, you're the problem. Fix this or you're benched." He didn't give him an ultimatum, and I do believe that he actually wants to work with Dyrus. But I don't feel like he has the tools and the communication tools to understand where Dyrus is coming from and speak to him in a way that's gonna make him want to make him feel like he is being cared for in a way by his coaching staff. That means that he has the best environment to win.
the team was just getting really negative. We were starting to do slightly better in scrims, but the attitude when we started losing would just get worse really fast, and Dyer is also a big contributor to that by just having a negative attitude, and that's why we decided to have a talk with him. I think Dyer's hearing it from all of the teammates rather than just hearing it from coaching staff or hearing it from Loco made a big difference, and recently Dyer's has just done everything in his power to stay positive, and I can already feel the change.
All right, so I I don't know. This is sort of Thorin, and if you ever watch anything by Thorin, he always talks about TSM brainwashing their players, and that seemed so scripted, so guided for them to say, "Hey, it worked out now that all the players said this to Dyrus." And I don't think there's anything wrong with having Bjergsen say something like that. It makes TSM look good as a whole. It makes the TSM Legends video look like the boot camping was productive. So, that's not really it's a moot point at this point.
Team didn't feel like Darius was trying enough because we know he can do better than he was doing and we know he can try harder than he was doing. And in that talk, basically he got all the feedback from the players and the coaching staff, and we all as a team, Darius individually spoke to every single player while we were all there in the meeting and said what he thinks we can improve on, which in the long run it will change us to a better team.
Okay, and that right there is helpful to know because then Dyrus also gets to say his feelings, and I think that's what's something that's done well by the coaching staff. But unfortunately we didn't get to see it, so we don't know how that went over. But at least not all the players are just going to shit on Dyrus. Dyrus also gets to tell them what he thinks, what they can improve on, and so then it's a learning experience for everybody. So, but again, I think those are important interactions to have before the last minute when you're boot camping for the biggest tournament of the year.
And since everyone is willing to be the best they can be, then everyone is taking it the right way and nobody's getting offended, which is how a team improves. If people get offended by what other players are saying to them, then you'll never improve. And that's why taking this meeting was something that will definitely help us, and we can already feel it.
When it comes from my teammates themselves, it's like, oh shit, I really need to get my shit together. Because in my mind, I think I'm trying, but in reality, I'm not trying hard enough. So I had to find it within myself to like find that extra like step of effort deep down and just like do the best I can. And the way that I did my best to find it is just by throwing away my pride, my ego, like throwing away like my subconsciousness of like 1v1ing all these great top laners and being like, I beat them by 20 CS, why aren't we winning the game kind of mentality. And I just threw that out the window, and now it really is like, I really do like do everything in the game for the team. If it's to get myself ahead to win, then it's for the team. If it's to get bottom or mid ahead, then yeah, it's just for the team.
What? Okay, so here's what I want to say. Props to Dyrus for taking all this criticism and all this bad coaching from his coaching staff and all these players telling him all the things he did wrong and coming out with this attitude, because even if this is scripted, Dyrus did go on to play fine during the Worlds, he was against world-class top laners, and sometimes they beat him by a lot, and they would try to camp him as much as they could. But he was clearly going to be the weakest point. But in terms of like his attitude, it didn't seem like there was anything wrong for the rest of the tournament or for the start of the tournament at all. So he obviously took this and he bettered himself, and I don't think that was because of what happened here. I think it was because they told him he's doing something wrong, and he was able to find it, like he said, within himself. It wasn't what anybody else said. And also something he mentioned was hearing it from all my, or maybe it was Bjergsen who said it. I can't remember who said it, but they said hearing it from all the players made me realize that I needed to fix something. And absolutely, that's the case. I think hearing it from the players is important, but like I said previously, the coaches should have already been telling the players to be saying these things from day one. They should have already been having the players work out conflicts among themselves and on one-on-ones and sort of in-team meetings, like say, hey, Dyrus, your attitude today sucked. I think you could have been, you could have not tilted here, and I'll do my best as as a teammate to keep my attitude positive if you do that too, like things like that. And when that happens, you don't have to bring it to the coach, and it's actually players' jobs to be able to communicate like that. But as soon as the coach starts telling players to to criticize their teammates, it feels bad. It feel bad if you were, let's say you were working at a McDonald's and your boss calls you in. He's like, "Hey, you're not smiling for the customers enough. Whatever it is, right?" And the boss, your manager, is like, "I need you to work on this," and then it doesn't. You keep not apparently smiling for the customers enough, right? And then your boss gets your coworker Sally. He's like, "Sally, come here, come here. Tell your employee Ned. Tell him that he's not smiling for the customers enough. I need you to communicate that he's not setting a positive work environment for us." Like it just doesn't happen. It's not something that a boss does. If a boss really can't deal with the player themselves, then then it's like, why do they have to call the customers in? Now, to draw the same parallel, if Sally comes up to me on her own and says, "Hey Ned, I think the boss is gonna get real mad with you if you don't start smiling. Maybe you should do that, and so you can, it's like so you look better. Maybe you get that raise at the end of the month, whatever it is." Then I'm like, "Oh, hey, thanks, Sally. I didn't realize I was looking so grim-faced. Thanks for reminding me." And then all of a sudden, I get the feedback from my coworker or my teammate and whoever it is, and I don't feel like I like she's being told to shit on me because that's what the boss wants. I feel like she's looking out for my best interest, right? So that's where I'll leave off the video. I was really excited to make this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.